Franklin Times, 1926. The serious danger with which civilization is threatened does not come from actual savages. The peril is from those dark-skinned races which have long ago put on a thin veneer of semi-civilization. No better example of this class can be found than the Hindus, mentally and morally incapable of real civilization.
The Bombay Hills are part of the Henua Ranges. They and the nearby town of Pukekohe are located just south of Auckland. This fertile area has many market gardens which provide fruit and vegetables for New Zealand's largest city. Though the gardens attracted Indian immigrants in the early part of the 20th century, the township of Bombay and its nearby hills are actually named after a ship called Bombay. It brought British and Irish immigrants to settle in the area in 1863. Because Auckland was New Zealand's capital at the time, the colonial government believed it was necessary to protect it from invasion by Waikato Māori, who were incensed over the confiscation of their land. So the British established military garrisons around the Henua Ranges. The route of State Highway 1 over the Bombay Hills down into the Waikato traces the military road built by the British in the early 1860s. During the 20th century, as market gardens became established, Indian immigrants came to the area to work as labourers. The work was long and hard, though most of the Indian immigrants had farming backgrounds. By the 1920s, about 60 Indians worked in Pukekohe as labourers in market gardens owned by Pākehā, or European New Zealanders. Life was difficult for these Indians, and changes to the immigration laws meant most prospective Indian migrants were denied entry. But families of Indians resident in New Zealand were allowed entry, so many Indian men brought out their sons. Eventually, some Indian labourers leased land to grow their own vegetables, and they formed the Pukekohe Indian Growers Association. Once farms owned by Indians were established, other Indians preferred to work for them, which antagonised some Pākehā growers who believed Indian and Chinese growers were enticing their labourers away. In 1926, about 60 Pākehā farmers in the Pukekohe area formed the White New Zealand League. This soon turned into a national movement. The League wanted it to be made illegal for Asians to acquire further land and urged the government to improve the quality of migrants to New Zealand.
The business and landowners in the district agree to approach the government to introduce legislation making it illegal to lease or sell land to Asiatics, and that the immigration from these countries be of a much higher standard than the class now coming in.
Later, the League called for all Asian immigration to New Zealand to be stopped. They were supported by a range of groups, including grower associations, labour organisations, local bodies, the Returned Soldiers Association, and city newspapers such as the Auckland Star.
The views expressed by the White New Zealand League are quite moderate and reasonable, and the questions that have been raised demand very serious attention from the general public, as well as the government.
In response, Indians argued that they were British-born subjects who belonged to the Aryan race and were therefore brothers and cousins to the English people. The White New Zealand League died out in the mid-1930s, though racial discrimination continued in Pukekohe. Until the late 1950s, Indians were excluded from barbers, private bars, balcony seats in cinemas, and could not join the local Growers Association. Today, the Bombay Hills mark the line dividing Auckland from the rest of New Zealand. The term south of the Bombay Hills is used by Aucklanders to denote the unsophisticated rest of the country. It is also used by non-Aucklanders to describe the sensible people who are not the self-important fashion followers that they believe can be found north of the Bombay Hills.